episode number 5 of the ACL series, and it's a pleasure to welcome Emily Joyce, who plays for Derby County, with me to really give her insight on women's football in general and what it's like to be a professional footballer in England below the WSL. Hi, Emily.
Hi, yeah. Thank you for having me on.
So Emily, can you quickly, I don't need a big in-depth discussion, but or biography. Can you give me just a quick overview of what you do?
Yeah, so I'm currently a PE teacher, so I'm going to be starting actually my first post in September, and then alongside that I obviously also play for Derby County Women, where we've now gone on to 3 nights a week training. Do actually have a contract like now as well. Well, some of us are going under contracts, and so it's kind of, we're being taken under the men, and it's like looking good for us going forwards into kind of like a new era, really.
So just let me point out for listeners here. So Derby County play in Tier 3, which is the equivalent of Division 1, I think, that in the stupid structure of men's football, they invent names. So in the 3rd division of women's football, and Derby finished 4th last season, is that right?
Yeah, 4th.
And it was a very competitive league at varying points with a bunch of young kids. That there was a chance of promotion, I thought, for a good decent run. So we're talking 3rd tier of women's football in England, and you introduce yourself as a PE teacher who plays football, which I think that's the perfect, most succinct way of describing it, which is brilliant. Not to undervalue your brilliance as a footballer, Emily is a very, very good footballer, and has the talent to be playing at a higher level. But there are constraints of life in girls' football. So, when did you start playing?
So when I was about 5 years old, literally just started like playing around in the garden, then kind of got taken to it was like a dribble kind of thing. So you just went round all these cones dribbling, and then from that I just loved it. And then, like a lot of girls' stories like our age, like ended up playing for a boys team, and then kind of was playing boys on a Saturday, girls on a Sunday when the teams finally came around. And then I think around like 12 I went and like actually trialed at Derby, and that was when I kind of got into the Centre of Excellence and played with them, and that was kind of like the beginning really. Then
did you play RTC?
Yeah, it was like they changed the name, don't they? Yeah, Centre of Excellence, but yeah, RTC.
Okay, so this is going to mean nothing to the listeners, but from my perspective, were you above like Abby Jones, Millie Drinkle, Naomi?
I think so. They're like, I think they may
They're
be
just
like
a little bit younger than you.
2 or 3 years younger, or but yeah, they would have been.
So to fill in the listener, the girls' football up until last year, they had centre of excellence. So the academy system in girls' football was run ostensibly by England, and they had RTCs, which are regional training centres. I think that's what it'll call. Who knows? But they were directed towards talent evaluation for the England pathway. That's rather than from a club perspective, but they would still kind of represent the club. Is that right? You wear Derby kits and you play for Derby County against other centre of excellence, don't you?
Yeah, like you're just saying about Ella Toon, like literally played against her when Man U had a centre as well. So yeah.
Yeah, and to quickly go over that, for people that haven't listened yet, Man United had a centre and then didn't have a centre, and they only reinvested. They completely didn't have a women's team at all for maybe 4 years, and then I think COVID year they suddenly reinvested lots and lots of money and quickly jumped into the WSL because of the Man United should be in the WSL because that's how you raise the profile of women's football. You need to fund it somehow. So that's great. So from that's kind of the idea, that it's about getting to play for England. Did you have any aspirations of being a professional and playing in WSL? Was that a motivator for you?
Yeah, definitely. I played with players that like at the time when I was at Derby, I went to like the England. I think I went to one England camp. Went to like, they were called EPCs at the time, like the elite performance camps. Went to lots of them with like, you know, like players that we've already spoken about that are like now playing for England. So I had that kind of opportunity, and like unfortunately it didn't go any further. And then once I kind of came to the end of my time at Derby with the RTC, I then decided that I wanted to like push myself, and went out my comfort zone and moved to Birmingham, where I actually stayed in a host family and went to college in Birmingham and trained alongside that. So it was like being like a full-time athlete, really. Like we were going like Monday, I think we did trade up Monday to Thursday, game on a Wednesday, match on a Sunday as well, playing for the academy, then the development. And then I was really lucky to get into the first team while I was there. I played along the side, played with like Ellen White and like Aoife Mannion, Jess Carter, who's currently in the team, like Hannah Hampton, who was there for a bit. So like, you know, I got good experience of good players, but again, it just never really like kind of built into anything. But I suppose the experience of that was really good. And then that's when I knew that I wanted game time, and then moved back to Derby.
That's really interesting. What was the difference in training between Birmingham and Derby? So Birmingham are WSL team.
They were at the time. They were like that was when they were really pushing. I think they were finishing like 4th, 5th above like those top 3 of like Man City, Chelsea, Arsenal. So it was a really good year when I was there. And it's Mark Skinner, who was my manager at the time, who's obviously Man United manager now. And probably the difference is like, obviously you train in the morning when you're there, aren't you? So, you know, you forget the fact that a lot of us like will be coming from different places where we've been at work all day, and then, you know, like only this year we're going to be training earlier, but we're training 8 till 10. And that's a long day to then have like gone all day to then be there, but doesn't take away the intensity of the training. But just probably more time for more the technical side of training. You can probably do something different on every single day. Whereas with our training when we're just doing Tuesday and Thursday, you obviously have to kind of pick out exactly what you want to work on for those 2 hours in that evening. Whereas, like I say, when you've got like your 5 days in the week to kind of look at everything you want to do, maybe do some more individual stuff, that would probably be the difference, really.
For sure. So during the time when you're at Birmingham, where you get to physically develop those things, do you find how do you find the difference in your body from you behaving like a professional to now having a full-time job and trying to behave like a professional?
Yeah, I think at the time I probably hadn't ever really thought about like my food and as much that until I kind of went to Birmingham, like was in the first team, and they were weighing you, and they were kind of speaking about like, you know, what you were
You were
eating.
getting weighed.
Yeah.
which is very controversial right now.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just pointing out. We'll come back to that later. But yeah.
Yeah, we got weighed, and I suppose before that I'd never really like taken that much notice of that. And I suppose when I was thinking more about eating was when we were in that host family, and the food I was getting there, like we had to kind of say something because it wasn't really what you'd expect for kind of us to be eating as like girls that were training like every day of the week with 2 games. So yeah, I suppose that was the difference. And then I think not until I came to Derby did I really start to think about what I was eating more, like as I grew up more, and started to think, I think this is, although like training alongside them then, I probably still say now I'm at my fittest that I've ever been. Even though I was training alongside some of like those players, I was still up there when I was there, but I'd probably say I'm the fittest now just because of the individual training I probably do, and probably have taken a lot of the stuff that they used to do with the running and the intense sessions that I now probably take on board going into like how I kind of do my day-to-day weeks now.
Just for reference of people listening here, that Joyce will be in the top 5 from physical perspective in the league. So she's a monster. She's James Milner of the 23-year-olds go. And she has quads like they're like the size of my car. Just to quickly nail down on those, right? Is that your structure of your body? Were you always kind of that shape, or have you developed from a physical perspective? Specifically, you've gone, right, I'm a footballer, I need to lift weights and do this to change my body shape in this way or that way.
I feel like I've always been quite solid, like compared to like, when you look at like other girls, like especially when I was growing up, I've never been like, that's not my kind of, never been like really thin, like I've always had, good sized quads, good calves, but like, yeah, I feel like I've probably learnt to kind of, because there's been a lot of talk about, like you said, just said about weight, and there's probably been a lot of talk about like, seeing how you look and stuff. And I feel like my kind of shape is kind of quite common for footballers. You get a lot of footballers with quite solid quads, and that does come from my training. I feel like, especially after like my ACL, that was something I wanted to really focus on as well, like all of the prehab, all of the kind of stuff I do away from our training as well, to make sure I'm in good shape to, touch wood, stop anything happening again.
So you mentioned that, I hadn't brought it up yet. Obviously, this is an ACL series. Emily has had an ACL tear. Do you want to tell us about that? How did it come about, and how long ago was it?
Yeah, so it was 2018-19 season when I first signed for Derby. I'd gone through the whole season. I think I'd literally played every single minute. I think I'd missed like a few minutes in like a few games at the start of the season, and gone through, and then it was second to last game of the season, and it actually wasn't a contact. It was, I went to turn and like pivot, and I just felt like something just like lock out of place. I wasn't sure if it was that at the time, just because you see other people do it and they scream and they do that, but I've always kind of been quite solid and just got on with things, like if I do get injured. But I did feel like it didn't feel right at the time, so went off, and I don't think the physio was sure what it was either at the time, but I knew it didn't feel right.
Can I just interject there? Physio. Was it an actual physio to start with, or were we using a sports therapist physio?
Yeah, that's the thing, you just call him physio, but he was a sports therapist, so he like that. And there you go, like, because I know that then the person that I was seeing, like the physio I was then seeing after that, he goes through, you do all the, you do know, don't you, quite a lot of the time, if you have done it, because they do those specific stretches, don't they, with you, where they feel your knee. And yeah, I mean, he even asked me if I wanted to go run on it, so like, and I knew in my head it wasn't right. So yeah, and then luckily at the time, actually, that was when I was with still doing my internship with Derby, and I mentioned it to them, and they said I could go see the physios there, and they took a look at it and said, like, you do need to go get it looked at. So that was where it kind of was really lucky, because you hear stories where girls, like there was one girl that had done it in our team that was having to be waiting on the NHS wait list for like 12 plus months, and luckily, because my parents were with Bupa, managed to get like everything sorted within 4 weeks, and like the surgeon I saw knew I wanted to get it done quickly, so he pushed everything along really quick, and it did work out really well in the end, actually. So well, as well as it could do from a ACL point of view.
From a girl's ACL football,
Yeah.
from girl footballer ACL injury, yeah, that's as good as that is about as good as it happens. I'll go. What, we have one better case a couple of years ago. Who she played with you this week, Sarah. She did hers in a first pre-season friendly 2 years ago, and it was the first time I met her. Lumped her in the car straight to A&E with her mum and dad, and when she was having it x-rayed, the surgeon was coming out. He just went into the X-ray room to look at, I don't know, whoever he'd been seeing to X-ray. Saw that she was in a Derby kit still, and he's a Derby fan. Started talking to her, and he got her, the consultant, one of the best in the country. Who we're lucky in Derby, 3 of the best 5 knee surgeons in the country just happened to be in our local hospital. And he operated on Friday, Sunday to Friday. He operated 5 days later because he was a Derby fan. So that's the kind of luck that you need in girls' football,
Yeah.
which is mind-blowing. Can you take me through the specific, what happened once you were on the pitch, lying on the floor, feeling like you'd hurt your knee? So what happens in the next like half an hour?
So literally I get taken off the pitch, and I then go off the side. Like I say, like because he wasn't sure what it was, he was even asking. I suppose because it was me, and I just kind of just get on with things, even if I get a kick or whatever in the game, just get on with it. So I don't think they thought it was anything bad. But I said like, no, I can't like go on it. So I remember I literally just sat out at the side of the just in our little bench area and just lay down on the floor, and then had the got some ice on it like you always do, and that was about it really. That was like till the end of the game, and then literally just hobbled. Like I could like still walk on it, but like I say, I could feel like it was like horrible. It's like, you know, and you just something just locking out of place, like it was like it would move at certain points. And I remember sitting in the changing rooms in my head just kind of knowing something wasn't right. And then I think I always remember getting home and saying to my mum, like, I don't want to be injured, I don't want to get big or anything, because it's what you think, isn't it? Like if you can't do anything, like, and like what you said, like I feel like I'm not blessed with like being, you know, really thin and stuff. So that was kind of on my mind as well, and just the fact that I wouldn't be able to play for another, like, well, it would have been another year, and then on top of that, literally a week before that, I just won player of the year at the fans player of the year at the men's award. So I went from literally like such a high to like the lowest of the lows.
Wow, it is a very, very different experience in girls football, in girls academy football, from what just the situation in boys football, but also the situation in those top 3, 4, 5 years ago. There were top 3 teams, weren't there? But that's expanding now down to maybe 6. Spurs invest money.
Yeah.
Brighton invest quite a lot of money, weirdly. So that's building up, but there's still such a jump down the league, isn't it? Like some of the WSL teams are part-time. They still aren't full-time players playing against some of literally the best players in the whole world.
Yeah.
And the quality of treatment is representative of that kind of investment as well. So how many girls on the team do you know that have been through, or how many girls do you know that have been through a similar experience having their ACL?
Well, it's interesting actually. I don't know if you've heard of Ellie Brazil from she plays at Tottenham. She was actually with me. She stayed in the host family actually at Birmingham with me, and she did her ACL. She always had quite a few injuries, but literally then like she got back, and I think I was even watching it on TV, and she did her other ACL. So like I knew of her like doing it. I always remember like growing up and like, well, like as I was getting more and more into like, especially like with the women's football being on TV, and I always remember hearing about Claire Rafferty. I think she'd had like 2 in one knee and then 1 in another, and I was just like, wow, like how many in Ellen White. So yeah, I'd say like probably across the years like 10 plus. Like even at the trials the other week, I'm sat there and Amelia goes, what was your last injury? I'm like, Amelia, don't ask me that. But then you get more and more people talking, and see, I didn't even realize Sarah had done hers, but I got like 2 other girls say about it. Obviously Stegs, who's joined it, has done hers. And then like I say, there was a girl at the time, Olivia, who was waiting while I was like I beat her to it really, like because I went through Bupa, and then literally that year as well another girl did her ACL. So yeah, it's just, and like, well, you look at the Arsenal women's team at the moment, is it 4? Like it's crazy. But in our league, is it 6 now? God,
Decimated.
yeah.
It's quite a big deal. So apart from the media calling it like an epidemic, are you aware of it growing up?
Not like not until, actually it's interesting, not until when I was playing for Derby for the RTC with AIM actually, AIM went in for a tackle with one of our players. We were at Lillishall, we were doing like a little training camp, and AIM went in for a tackle with this girl called Laura, and she didn't even touch her, and she kind of must have just been like her just putting the weight on her leg, and her knee went then. And not until then did I really know what ACL was, and I was probably like 15 at the time then, 15, 14, around that, and I hadn't really ever really like heard anything of it. And then, like I said, the more women's football started to come into the picture on TV a bit more, you started to hear more like that Claire Rafferty story. I always remember hearing that, and that Ellen White had a few as well, and you just start to hear about it more and more, and like I do actually find it really interesting now, as horrible as it is. Like I remember Rob Holding had done his at a similar time as mine, and I remember watching his like recovery story, but no, like I hadn't really ever really thought of it until like I say, my friend had done it at that camp. And like I said, I don't really remember anyone doing it at such a young age other than that. And then now it's just so like common that you hear of it so often, don't you?
Yeah, it is. I'm trying to knuckle down whether it's always been prevalent and it wasn't talked about, and now it's become a narrative in the media. People talk about it, or it's the cases, the incidents of just going up. I see from my perspective, from working with RTC, starting RTC maybe 7 years ago, around then, to being around the game for 6-7 years, working in and out the England age group pathways. The number of girls I see aren't related to. I can't compare them to the number of boys I see from working in the Premier League. It's not comparable. And the research gets banded around. It's between 2 and 8 times more likely. I don't know what between 2 and 8 times means. It's such a stupid statistic to be thrown out. It's a lot. And going through the minutiae of the research, there's so much research, but there's a lot done from England and from the top down, like Andy Hudson, and there's a whole bunch from the Emily Simmons from Leeds, and they're doing studies now, but they're doing studies at the highest level on the best players with the best preparation. A lot of which, the City girls, they'd have been doing S&C from 12 in their academy. When did you get your first S&C session?
We were doing, I wouldn't know if we would call it S&C, but to be fair, we were doing it like under 15s. We were doing, it was actually our physio at the time there. She was actually doing like little sessions with us where it was like it was just body weight stuff, but it was all banded. So like we did kind of get into it quite well there, but do you feel like that's obviously coming in a lot earlier now, isn't it? But yeah, it was kind of like you'd be doing it like really early on now, wouldn't you? Whereas it was kind of unheard of. It was like when I probably very first started with Derby to then bringing it in more now.
When did you start lifting weights or get like support for being in the gym?
From Birmingham, so I would have been 16, 17.
Okay. And how did that feel being in a gym? Like, was that new to you?
Yeah, like it was really like unusual going from, like I said, like that from a Derby, like being in that kind of, we're in this kind of hall and doing, like our kind of exercises in there, like a bit like circuit style, which was still worked you, to then being in a gym where it was actually at our college where we did the gym as well, and then we'd sometimes go in to use the leisure centre gym as well. And like to think you're like kind of going from doing that, like I said, at Derby to that, it's a bit daunting, and you want to make sure obviously you're doing all the exercises correctly. And that was probably what kind of started my like real interest in kind of sports science and strength and conditioning rehabilitation side of it, where I kind of started to look at form and stuff like that.
So just to point out that Emily's been very positive about her experience with this stuff, but going to a relatively professional setup in Birmingham, and she's still working in a gym in a college somewhere. That's not what boys go through, working in a little, local leisure centre. It's very, very different. And which you're hopefully you're getting more access into like specific strength and conditioning gym now at the training ground, which is fair, which is new to you, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is crazy that it's new, and it's wonderful that you have this positive I don't know, outlook on your experiences, but they're not the same as boys' experiences. That if I spoke to any 23-year-old footballer, there's a professional, you're in Division 1, that's not their experiences throughout their career. So it's interesting having this difference. What you were saying that your physio, who was probably a graduate sports therapist, was going through banded exercises with you from an S&C perspective. What can you tell me about with that? I like that you're positive, and it's important that you are, and you're honest about these things. What is your experience of these coaches? Like, what is the caliber of coach that you see? What like experience do they have? What age are they? That kind of thing. Do you see what I'm getting at?
Yeah, like I know, I agree. It's like well, like I said, that was the really like the physio. I think she actually was an actual physio, a chartered physio. But she was doing, it was just her like on her own. There was no one else, you know what I mean? So she couldn't look at 30 of us, because we kind of did under 15s, under 17s together, and then like the younger age groups going. So she wasn't able to then look at us, and then not that we were like lifting weights or anything anyway, but they're not able to give you that attention then, are they? Then like when you're in a gym and there's like only maybe like 10 of you in the gym at a time, you can go around, can't you? And kind of, well, they always have, like I said, my experience of being doing that internship at Derby, there was always like 2 of them in the gym, coaches like looking at all of the players like all the time, if not more staff that were always constantly checking their form. They were going through the prehab exercises. Like you said, at the moment, this is all new to us, like going to 3 nights a week. Like, yeah, we have had access to the gym for like 3 years now with the men, but have we had like proper access to it? No, not really. Like until really now, where we have started as of last week doing prehab to start training. Then we've got our proper we've actually now got our actual gym programs where we're going to like stick to each week, instead of it being like, oh, we've not got time this week, because, you know, like we were limited to time. So that's obviously like a huge step in the right direction. But like you said, I think because we've not had a lot of this stuff, I'm probably more positive that it's like happening now. But really, you look back and you're like, you've not had enough access to stuff where like the men that they would have had throughout there, like I said, looking at the boys on that internship, how much they've got, and they're just used to that, whereas now we're only just becoming used to prehab. And like I said, I did that at Birmingham, but for now with us with Derby, this is like a whole new kind of thing for us.
Just without throwing shade on anybody, this is not about that at all. This is part of the process of coaches involved. That your S&C, the S&C of the first team in Derby Ladies just got a job with the young boys in the academy.
Yeah.
Like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's insane. That you have to get in with a first team at any level, but Division 1, if you get in the males first team, that there is a process of experience. There's a process of developing, of demonstrating competence and then mastery before you get up to that level. And not in any way saying Matt isn't great. That's not the point. This is not about Matt. This is about the pyramid of experience of coaches that you get that are involved in women's football. Matt is really, really good. Any other club is the same situation. It's like a first job that you get to be lucky and work with girls, and then hopefully you're quickly moving on to work with the young boys, because your goal is to go and be at Man United's first team, and it's part of the pathway is to you put up with working with girls so that maybe you can get your foot in the door to go work with where you want to go. And it's not, you don't get the highest quality of staff, of coaches, of I'm not talking specifically about Derby at all. Derby got some really good coaches. I'm just talking of women's football. It's always a stepping stone to something else, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And so you're getting less experienced coaches, which, if experience means anything in the world, it should mean something here. That's kind of where I'm going with this. Can we touch on your rehab from ACL? Like, what did that look like? What happened from your surgery?
So I mean, that was like completely different as well, like speaking again about like a boy's perspective on it, like luckily like he was actually a sports therapist, so a new kind of sports therapist took over after the guy who I kind of, so I had my ACL and it was a different guy, and then a new guy took over it with the sports therapist role. And I kind of went through, because I had it done by Bupa and got it done at the Nuffield, it then meant that I got like more sessions done by them. So I remember actually like messaging the manager and just saying like, what's best, should I like come to the sports therapist or should I stick with like the Nuffield, who have like obviously like seen a lot of people with ACL injuries before? So I kind of stuck with them to begin with, and just kind of fed back to the sports therapist at Derby. But I'm not gonna lie, I didn't have the best time there. Like the physio there got me running like really early, like, and I didn't feel right with it. So that's when I immediately kind of put a stop to that and then went back to the sports therapist at Derby. But actually in the meantime as well, at the gym I go to just in my town where I just trained, do my extra work there. The physio there had previously worked at West Brom, and he'd worked with some other sports, and I knew he was like a highly like regarded physio, so I actually booked in with him and luckily got like the sessions free through my Bupa as well. Like again, like why am I like, you know, a man doesn't even have to think about that, do they? Like they just get it all done for them. And he really helped and he was really good. So then I kind of got passed over then to the sports therapist at Derby and then worked with them for the rest of it. And he was Jake was really good like throughout it all, like, and I always knew that like felt like really in safe hands with him and the support was there. And then that's when kind of Matt took over as well with the kind of running side of things as well. And then like I said, then when I was about ready to come back into like the non-contact side of things, I think it was about March time when we were then being locked down for COVID, like March, April. So it meant that I like obviously the season got null and void. And then it meant that it was like a negative, but I actually meant that I had even more time to kind of get myself right. And actually after that, like I ended up, that was probably the best physical side I'd been in. Then I'd like ended up like losing a lot of weight. I think it was the fact like, you know, there was nothing like you didn't have to think about anything else. You were just kind of at home and you could structure your meals how you wanted them, and there was no kind of going out or anything. And I was just training, even though you didn't have access to the gym, I kind of had some stuff at home. And I was going out on my runs. It was probably like I say, not as fit as I am now because I'm playing, but like the fittest I'd kind of been like physically wise as well. So yeah, it was a real like I said, you just would not expect that in a men's setting where I was kind of being seen by the Nuffield, and then coming in, it would be like you would have been seen straight away by them and they would have done every single step of your rehab. Whereas I think I had like 4 different people, if not more, that I kind of came into contact with to kind of help with my rehab, not all great ones as well. So
it's tricky, like maintaining that story, because you want people to have experienced this journey with you, so and people that know you. And one of the other things I wanted to come to is what sort of sports science or what physical testing had you undertaken at that point? So you literally, the people that aren't aware, that you have masters in S&C rehab, so you know about this stuff. So what was there any sports science baselining that the club had done before to know what standards you need to be at to get on the pitch? Or were they going, yeah, you can kind of, you look about right? Like, do you see, how were they coming to the conclusion that you were ready for a start or ready to accelerate to the next phase of your training?
No, see, that was like it as well. Like again, because there'd been like that changeover in like sports therapist at the time, kind of meant, well, like there hadn't really been anything done previously. Like we'd got I mean, at that stage, we called it the dungeon. We'd got access to this room. You've probably seen it, like the room in the back of the 3G inside. And that's where we used to do all our stuff. So we hadn't ever really, like, we'd done jump testing, but nothing like else that was like really an indication of where I'd be to be able to get back to. Like, we'd always do the yo-yo. So I always knew where I'd need to get back to fitness wise, but I didn't know anything in terms of actual like testing. And then I didn't really do any specific testing. Then when I came back, it was like more kind of like kind of measurements of my quads and my calves to kind of around there that we were constantly doing. But there wasn't, obviously, we didn't have access to any, you know, really good technology that I could have used to have been able to have even tested that anyway. And then obviously, like I say, COVID kind of happened, but I suppose thinking about it now, it's funny because I literally like was ready to come back into training. I think I'd done like the odd non-contact session, and then like I say, then that was it. That was the end of the season. Then I remember going back in. I think we came out of lockdown about July, did we? Like July, August time. And then that was when then I kind of just went back into training then. But it had actually been like a year and a month then since I had my surgery in June the year before. So it meant that I'd like literally had like a year and a month. So it was nice in that sense that I'd had longer to kind of get back. But then I remember we went training because of like the COVID and everything. So we went training on this field because we kind of weren't allowed access yet to the training ground. And I kind of just joined back in. There was no like even, do you know what I mean? Like the sports therapist looked at me, but I've been in contact with him and everything looked fine. And I just kind of went back in, and it's crazy because I think I hadn't even kind of, you know, I was meant to have that kind of clear pathway back in with kind of slow, you know, you're on 45 minutes now, or you're only on 20, now you're on 40, now you're on 50, like that kind of thing. I just kind of went back into training after that, but everything did feel good. So, you know, I was happy with the fact that I'd had that longer time, and that probably, I always think that I always go back to that probably did help me. But again, a very unusual experience compared to what other people will have done.
For sure, that I'd be amazed if it didn't help. That people rushed in 9 months, and we've got this 9-month target in our brain. And do you actually know what the 9 months is for?
No, like that was always, but it's funny you say that because that was always mine. And I always looked at, some people do it like men can get it in 7, can't they, occasionally? But what actually is it?
Yeah, so the idea behind the 9 months is basically the reestablishing of the nerve. So you can get all of your quads, all of your musculature back. You can kind of get some of the skill back. But did you have like you said, when you first felt it, it felt weird? That when you have the surgery, the nerve is cut basically, and it gets reattached, and it just takes a minimum of 9 months before that, like I call it a motorway, before that neurological motorway gets up, so the cars can go up and down it, so you can feel your feet, so you can feel your toes, you can contract your muscles below your knee, and create like rhythm and synchronization with all of that flow of how you run, how you stop, and you have to go through a period of reestablishing skills, because that main nerve didn't exist and it's new. So you can go through all of the skeletal stuff and recovering the muscle that you had before, but until 9 months, it's very, very unlikely you've got full feeling back. And that's why you can, like, going back at 6 and 7 months. I saw a Stoke player at 5.
God,
Blows my mind with the science that we're aware of these days. It just blows my mind, because they can hit some targets. A man.
God.
Yeah, no, I've not seen a woman do that. You can have massive strength capacities before the surgery, so that you can hit massive strength numbers afterwards quickly. But that doesn't cover up for the fact that it's impossible for the nerve to have grown back. So that when you stop it, when you break, it won't turn on all the muscles at the right time to stop you. So the increased likelihood of you tearing something all over again is much higher, because when you put your foot on the brake, it's not even that it doesn't come on, it's that you don't know if for a car metaphor, if you're slamming your foot on the brake, you don't know if it's going to take 30 feet or 40 feet or 50 feet for your car to actually stop. You don't know yet. your brain doesn't know yet. That's
Yeah.
what it is. So it's just reestablishing that. So yeah, that's the kind of 9 months. So the further away you get beyond 9 months, the lower the recurrence rate drops, right, hugely. And if you can get to 18 months, you're kind of good to go. But 18 months is really the indicator for a knee reoccurrence, and usually very often contralateral as well, the opposite knee, which is all kind of scary with girls. I've taken a lot of your time. There's a couple more questions, right, I wanted to cover. One of the things was that we've read about in research and in a lot of the media stuff that's gone out in the last couple of months on the proliferation of ACLs and women's and sport is footwear. And one of the things I read last week was we need more research into specific women's football boots, because in a questionnaire, all of these high percentage of girls said their boots were uncomfortable. And so I'm going to preface this with, I had this conversation with a whole bunch of boys straight after that, and only one of them said that their boots were comfortable in their life. Football, I feel like football boots aren't particularly comfortable in the first place. So to set that aside, because that's garbage, that's my opinion, that doesn't mean anything. How do you feel about that? And is there anything you find missing from like your boots?
Well, I found that interesting. Yeah, because like I remember like one of the physios we've had recently saying, like, you know, with the men, like how often they change their boots. And like, I don't know, you know, like no one ever knows how long they actually wear them for and which ones do they wear these specific ones on like a match day or whatever. But they always said they get them like fitted to their feet. And I don't know how true that actually is. But like, I know when I buy, like I like to, I mean, again, this is the difference. Like I keep mine for a season, like I want them to last. But like when I'm buying them, I'm making sure they're as comfortable as they can be for me, and like they're the fit I like and they feel right, and I'm going to be able to, again, like I'm looking at like this, are they going to be able to last as well? Like that's how I'm looking at it too. But like I've sent one, I ordered a few this year.
Girls buy their own boots, just to reinforce it. Girls buy their own boots.
Yeah, because I ordered a few like this year, and you know, I quite like a particular style, but I've actually swapped because they were quite tight on my feet, whereas I've bought some Adidas this time and they just fit better on my feet. And I felt that I was reading the reviews and they were saying they're a bit more wider fit, and for like my feet probably fit that. So that was why I went with them. And yeah, I'd say mine are pretty comfortable, but you always get to like yesterday, the end of a game, when they're digging into your feet because your feet are really hot or whatever. And I'd probably say they're never really like that comfortable. And, you know, like you said about what the boys have said as well, and that was probably something I haven't really ever really thought about too much. But I remember the boots I did my ACL in, I didn't wear them again. After that I got rid of them because, again, superstitious and whatever. But yeah, I didn't wear them again, and I don't think it was anything to do with the boots, but you know, it could be like, but there's so many different things. Because again, you know, the other day when Kira Walsh, I'm going off on a tangent, but when Kira Walsh, they thought she'd done hers, they were saying about Ellen White was saying about like when you're on your menstrual cycle, that was like a big indicator. I remember Jordan Nobbs did hers at a similar time to mine, and I was reading up on hers, and she said she actually was on her menstrual cycle at the time, and that they were tracking that, and she did say that day she woke up feeling tired. So there's so many different things, and I look back and I wasn't, and I think was there anything I could have done differently? I think a girl actually makes me before I ran back actually to try and tackle her again, and that's when I did it. So I always say that's the worst thing. But you know, there's just so many different things, isn't there, that like come into it. And again, the footwear side of it is really interesting.
So what do you? The hormone thing was my second question. When you're going to buy a pair of boots, what is it you're looking for? What things are in your mind?
Well, I mean, for me, it is like making sure they like do go with the kit. That is like a big thing, and that they like look good, to be fair. But I always do go for the best ones available, because for me, I just think they're designed to be for the best athletes.
The best, does that mean the most expensive available?
Yeah. I always them. Like I just always think they're designed like, I suppose that's what the men wear, and I always think I'm going for them. But I usually do, like I say, I had a Nike pair and a Adidas pair, and I actually did want the Nike pair more, really, because I'm used to Nike more than Adidas, and I was probably a bit skeptical to go for like the Adidas ones, because like I say, I'm not used to them. But then I tried them both on, and they weren't as comfortable to wear. They were quite tight, because I always try and like size up a bit as well in boots. Again, it's like, is that right or not? I don't know. But yeah, like, they were just, the ones I've got at the moment were just more comfortable. They fit my feet better. And that's what I do look for. I don't think to myself, I don't know how you could wear a pair of boots and them not be okay when you first put them on and actually try, like, feel okay. So yeah, that would be what I'd go for, really.
So a couple of things I'm learning here is that we need to do a little workshop on what things you need to look for in buying a boot.
Yeah.
But so do you ever look at like the sole, the stuff it's got on the bottom? Does that matter to you? Do you know what you're looking for? Do you care at all, or are you just going on what's on top and then buying an Astro pair or a hard ground, a soft ground pair?
Sometimes I have looked like at, again, that's why I kind of probably have leaned towards the Nike, because I quite like the way that the molds are like distributed on like the bottom of the shoe, whereas I've seen like some of the Adidas ones, just the style of like the molds I've like not really like, not, when I say not liked, as in I've just thought, oh, are they like going to be okay, you know, when you're turning and stuff. But it's not something I really like look at in as much detail. Like I say, the ones I've been having the Nike Phantoms, and they've been I quite like how like they're quite distributed, and like the actual shape of the molds, and like I feel like they have done me well the last few seasons. Whereas like these ones I've got now, I like made sure I tried them on, and actually like I always like go and actually play in them first and see if I like them before I actually then keep them as well. And they felt really good. And when I turned, because again, that's a big indicator of like when you turn in, and like they actually feel okay when you turn in. But like I say, it's bad, but you wouldn't be like the main thing that I'd look for when I'm buying them.
You're just human. That's all. It's important to know these things, so
Yeah.
we have information that if I can give you information that might influence what you buy, and if there is a good or a bad,
Yeah.
like that matters, and you don't have that information. That's what I'm talking about. You like with the menstrual, because we have a presentation on nutrition and I'm talking about from the academy level on hormones and nutrition and recovery and stuff. So, but you guys don't, and which is surprising to me. But so me collating through the top 3 tiers over the last 2 seasons, we're over 190 ACLs over the top 3 tiers, and we're looking at more than 70% were in the first 4 days of their period. And that's a massive chunk of those girls that there's something, we don't know what it is, but there's something going on with that. So there's definitely something to look at. And I'll talk to you afterwards about some of the protocols we're putting in with the academy. Maybe it needs a chat with Sam. But like there is stuff that we can do, hopefully, to help avoid that stuff. Because I do believe in biology, absolutely. But there's also lots and lots of other stuff that we can do to help. And hopefully we're getting a better grasp of that. And hopefully this, through me talking to lots of people, I'm getting a better grasp of what we can do, which hopefully will be of benefit. The hormone thing. So what information have you had about it? What do you know about like the cycle and the impact on your joints or whatever?
I'm not sure. It was just like I say, I always remember when Jordan Nobbs did hers, and like and I kind of read the research that she'd read, and it was kind of saying about how like basically what you've just said about how when you are on, you are more likely to for an injury to occur, like an ACL, because of the fact like of more people kind of are like more fatigued at that point. And like I said, like I think she literally said she woke up that morning and did feel more tired. And again, like at that level, they are tracking it and they are looking at things like that. and again, I didn't know any of that before I'd done my ACL. It was like only after that I started like reading up on it. And again, that was what I immediately did. I then like went and like checked whether I was on at the time and seeing if like that was like I've already said, like that, whether that was an indicator for me, or even thinking about the footwear and stuff, whether any of that could have like helped it, like before I did it. But that's kind of the main thing. I hadn't really ever really read but much more about it before that.
It's really interesting. It's really interesting for me as a coach to know what players understand, and see if we can piece together a little bit more of I don't know, like a strategy, like these are the key principles. These are key learning points for you as a footballer that you need to know. If boy footballers obviously don't have to go through the same things, but they still have key principles of understanding of being a footballer. If you do this, this happens. If you do this, this happens. If you don't do this, then this happens. All those things. You just want to be empowered to be the best version of physical and emotional and cognitive version of you, to be the best footballer you can be. Dude, I really, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for doing this.
I hope it's been helpful.
Yeah, it's been brilliant for me. If nobody else listens to it, hopefully some of the folks that do tend to listen will. So that's been awesome. So thank you very much. You don't want any of my idiots following you on Twitter or anything, so I'm not even going to pass that around. But do check out Emily, and if you can, look at some of the highlights. She is boss.
Thank you.